Hello lovelies. Before I start the podcast, just a little quick, something a bit different but I think important. I'm grateful to Mandy of Mouse's Makes for bringing this podcast to my attention. This is a lady called Chris and her podcast is Loopy Loop UK. I'll put the link down below. Now Chris has had a really rubbish time. She is a knitter, she's a crafter, and she's had ill health, she's had family ill health. She has a YouTube channel and her ambition was to get 1,000 subscribers. Well, at time of recording, she's blasted that. She's over 1,000 subscribers. But I say we don't have to meet expectations when we can exceed them. So if you have 30 seconds of your time to click on the link, hop over to her channel and subscribe. Let's get her to 2,000, let's get her to 3,000, because she really has had the roughest time. Some people get more than their fair share of the brown stuff, don't they? And let's just give her as many subscribers as YouTube can provide. So that's Chris from Loopy Loop UK. I'll put the link in the notes below. You go over, do a craft or a solid, subscribe, keep those numbers up. It's a very quick thing for us to do, and I'm hoping it means a lot to her. Now on with the usual stuff. Hello lovelies, welcome to the January 2025 episode of the Not Quite Enough Yarn podcast. My name's Lesley. This is a podcast about yarny stuff, mostly knitting, crochet, spinning, recorded on the south coast of the UK. Welcome, thank you for being here. Whether you're here for a relatively new time or a relatively old time, you are extremely welcome and I'm very grateful for your company. So hello and hi everyone. Hope you're all okay. It's called the Not Quite Enough Yarn podcast, despite the fact that I have lots, because I rarely buy enough of one colour to make a whole garment. And although it looks at the moment as if I did have, in this case, as you can see by the hint of the sleeve and the pockets and the base, I didn't. This was also part of the design. This is the Chroma sweater by Jacqueline Cieslak. I started doing it as a test knit, but unfortunately didn't finish the test on time, so I bought the pattern and made it in 3 colours when I was doing a 4-colour version, because that kind of suited how I was using the yarn better. Yeah, so that's that. Anything you see me wearing, if I don't mention it on the podcast, I will put it in the notes below. If you'd like to contact me, my email address is notquiteenoughyarn@gmail.com, or I'm on Ravelry and on Instagram. Not sure about staying on Instagram with all the changes at the moment, but I'm there at the moment, and my address, my name on both is Knitting or Death. So that's the intro, I think. Yep. Oh, structure of the podcast. I've had to make notes. I've got so much to talk about right now. Normally I record throughout the month when I've got something to show you, and then I just put the pieces together and upload on the last weekend of the month. How ironic that it was the structure that I didn't tell you, because I've had to make notes. And anyway, I've been very busy. My motto at the moment is I'm doing what I can when I can, and I've had a fairly high knitting mojo. Now this is something that I actually started in November but then put to one side because I was doing my Advent project in December, and finished it this month once I'd finished the Advent. So it's a chunky jacket cardigan. I'll put some pictures in here of me wearing it. It is the classic knit jacket by Pearl Soho. I've actually made one of these before. I'll show you a picture of that. That was all in one colour. That was unusual. I was going through my stash. It's been quite chilly here. And I was going through my stash and I thought I've got a lot of chunky yarn that I've been given. The Noro that I'm about to show you, I was given a great big amount of by a viewer. Thank you, George. And also himself, when he sees colours I know I like, he knows I like, he'll pick up yarn, whatever the weight. And so I've got have had a fair amount of chunky yarn to use, and I thought, it's winter, let's make something chunky. So I have this very large, very warm, but very light jacket. So the yarns are, the main yarn, which you can see I used for all of the top, is Noro Kiso, which is a wool, silk and alpaca mix. And then I've got lots of other stuff going in here. So we've got some Wool and the Gang Feel Good, which is an alpaca nylon merino mix. This is the Cinnamon Dust colourway. And also further down I've got the same yarn in the Summer Haze Stripes colourway. This is this pinky bit here. I've got some Katia, oh, and the Wool and the Gang is alpaca, nylon and merino mix. I've also got some Katia Concept Reiki, which is alpaca and merino. So the red stripe yarn that I've got at the bottom is that, and also the blue with the yellows and greens, that's that yarn as well. These have numbers rather than names, so this is 201 and that's 204. Rico Creative Melange, which was quite a funny when he bought that, because if I'm doing a bit of a cook from the fridge type of dinner, you know, kind of use up leftovers, I'll call it a melange dinner. So where's that gone? Because that's, did I put that in the hood? Yes, used quite a bit of that in the hood, so it's this lovely turquoise mix. And that is a wool acrylic mix, and that's colourway number 46. So lots of different yarns, mixtures of fibres, don't really care. I quite often do that because I'm putting different yarns together. And in terms of care, this hasn't been blocked, as you can see. In terms of care, I just go by whatever the most delicate yarn in there needs and treat it accordingly. So launder, block, whatever accordingly. So modifications, I tapered the sleeves. I like a close fitting sleeve, and the original pattern has a bit of decrease but then working straight down, and I wanted more of a tapered effect than that. I added the hood. It's cold out here and I don't have much hair at the moment, so added a hood. Also added pockets, which I think I've sewn a bit too low now I've tried it on, but we'll see how we go on that. I can always move them. And I made it longer than the original pattern. Total yardage or meterage 1,340. It was a very quick make. It was on 9mm needles. That was what I needed to get gauge. So so yes, a very quick make. A light, quite airy cardigan, but warm. And I can see me getting a lot of use out of this winter, because I'm liking that a lot. So that is item number 1. Oh. As I was on a bit of a chunky fix, oh, there's the other one, I decided to make myself, I had some more chunky yarn left over, I still have, but I have this Rico yarn, and this is Rico Design Luxury Hand Dyed Happiness Chunky. Natty little name, 100% wool, and I just love the colours of this. So I thought I'd make myself a hat, and I had quite a lot left over, so I made myself some short wrist warmer mitts as well. I am feeling the cold quite a bit at the moment, and I'm finding that most of the mitts and hand warmers I've made have been quite long in the fingers, because that's what you need. If I'm sitting indoors and I'm knitting, I want something that's going to warm up the pulse points and keep the hands warm, but I need full access to my fingers if I'm crafting. So I thought I'd make some short mitts, so longer on the wrist but short on the hand, and also made this hat. Now, I am conscious that a lot of the things I knit are very plain, and I do a lot of stocking stitch, just very plain, and often that's what's needed, and given how many colours I use, often that's the sensible thing to do, because otherwise it just gets super busy. But I just felt like adding a bit of texture. So I made this hat and added a bit of texture. So I've got a couple of different cables. That's just a regular braid cable. Again, you see the busy yarn, you're not going to see it, but that's just a regular 6-stitch cable. This other side fitted on better to the 2x2 rib I had at the bottom, so I did a cable with a kind of gap in the middle. Not showing up because of the busyness of the yarn, but I know it's there. It actually shows up better off camera than on. But and also I put some moss stitch panels along with some stocking stitch. This started off, I printed off the Ross hat by Ross Rochester. Now if you don't know that pattern, it's a free pattern on Ravelry, I'll link it below, and it's a basic beanie hat pattern, but it's available in 4 different weights. So it's very useful if you just want the basic numbers. There are 4 different weights there, so it's quite a useful pattern to have in your library for that reason. So I printed that off, and then I thought, but actually I don't want to use as big a needle as that on this yarn, because chunky yarns seem to be one of the broadest spectrums I find in terms of chunky can be just a bit heavier than Aran, and it can be very, very thick, almost the super bulky weights. So for this particular pattern I felt that the needle size was just a little too loose. So I went down needle size, so I thought, well, I better add more stitches, especially as I'm putting cables in. And I also did a different length of rib and a different length of hat. So I started off with the Ross hat and completely altered it. Doesn't matter. These I just made up. Once I'd finished this, I worked out by holding this against my wrist how many stitches I thought I'd need. Just knitted a square of 2x2 rib and sewed together just above the thumb and below. So super simple. Yeah, just wanted something very quick. And I mean, these things were made in an evening, so you know, super quick. In total I've used 74 grams of the yarn. Can't remember how many meters that is. I doubt if you care. But yeah, just really simple, quick, chunky, bright and cheerful, suitable for cold weather and keeping warm. Now, December is a time for gifts, and January is a time for enjoying those gifts. Unless you're me, in which case January is also a time for gifts. Because I know some lovely people and they've sent me stuff. And it's very, very kind of them. And I have thanked them individually as well, but I'm going to show you their kindness. So I'm going to start off, Valerie and Jim. Now Valerie and Jim are the hosts of Visit with Nana and Papa podcast. And they are both absolute darlings. They're in the throes of moving house at the moment, so I hope that's going really smoothly for you. But Jim, knowing that I'm going through chemotherapy at the moment, sent me this lovely mug on which it says, "Always remember, you are braver than you believe, stronger than you seem, smarter than you think, and loved more than you know." Thank you, Jim. And Valerie, seeing how much fun I got out of opening minis in December, decided to send me some. So she placed an order with Loop in London and got me this wonderful selection of minis. So thank you, Valerie. I'm just overwhelmed. I really am. It's such kindness, such generosity. These are beautiful yarns. So we've got some lichen and lace. We've got this lovely pale lilac, which is the amethyst colourway. Got this beautiful tealy blue called Blue Lagoon. This lovely lilac, pink and yellow called Bouquet. I mean, these are just amazing. Green, pink and lilac Wildflowers. A sort of deeper version of the same. This is called the Wildflower Remix. This lovely red called Rosewood. These are all sock minis from Lichen and Lace. This lovely blue, Calm Waters. and I very much enjoyed opening these. I mean, I should have shared the opening with you. And this gorgeous green evergreen, and there's also a couple of Madeleine Tosh minis in here, and this, I think it's numbers rather than, oh no, so this is called Short Court, so you've got grey with deep pinks and yellows, and this is called Death by Elocution, which is very apt, and you've got a lovely magenta here. So Valerie, Jim, thank you so much. Just couldn't be more thrilled, overwhelmed, just blown away by your generosity and your kindness, and I love you dearly. Thank you so much. Just amazing. Just but it didn't end there, because I had a message from Sophie saying, can I have your address, I've got something to send you. And she sent me, and this also included some chocolates, which I haven't eaten yet, they must be over there. So some Lindt chocolates, thank you very much. This beautiful hat, which is stunning. And this absolutely fabulous, just shaking it out the bag, shawl, which is, I mean, look at it, it is amazing. I'm showing you the wrong side, but it still looks amazing to you, I'm sure. So look at this beauty. Just thank you, because it is gorgeous and soft. It's a drops yarn with mohair. Sophie let me know that, so that if I had an issue with mohair, I could pass it on to someone else. But luckily I don't, and it is just beautiful. Thank you so much. A small amusing tale. Actually, I'm going to swap hats to put the matching one on. As you can see, the hair is definitely thinning. Oh, and this is the lovely hat made for me by Benta of the Epilogue Lady, who is back podcasting. So get yourself over there. She's got a January podcast out, which is great to see. So yes, fabulous, soft and warm hat and scarf. My mate Mandy came round to visit, and you can tell she's my best mate, because only my best mate would get away with saying something like this. So I showed her these beautiful things. I said, look how lovely people are. And she held up the shawl and she said, oh, that is gorgeous. Do you think she sent it to you so you can see what your shawls should look like? And that's my best friend, folks. Might have to revise that in 2025. That's why we love her. So thank you, Valerie and Jim. It is just so kind. Thank you. I don't know what else to say. It's just wow. No. Oh goodness me. Where's my bit of paper gone? Oh yes. I have another finished object to show you. And this is a sweater that in one sense has taken me a long time, and in another sense has taken me about a week. It's taken me a long time because it is made up of scraps, and I've been collecting those scraps for about a year. But the actual knitting of it has taken about a week. Like I say, I'm doing what I can when I can. I'm having time to knit at the moment, and I'm having inclination to make. So I'm doing it because another week I might not want to. So this is a Scrappy sweater. Now the sweater of all the sweaters I've made, the one I wear the most is this one. And this is Pure Fuzz by Skeindeer. And I made it holding together 2 strands of grey boucle, which I've still got a bit there, quite fine weight, with scraps of 4-ply / fingering weight yarn left over from other projects. And I wear that sweater a lot. My only thing I don't like about it is the neckband is very wide, which I could have done something about, never did, doesn't matter. But for a while I've been thinking I would like to make another one of these. Now I don't think I have enough of the grey to make another. I could possibly do 1 strand of grey and 1 strand of something else. That will probably be the next one. But I do have other cones of fine weight yarn, and I had a navy blue 3-ply wool acrylic mix, 20% wool, 80% acrylic. 3-ply but very fine, it's like a lace weight sort of yarn on a cone. So I wound some of it up, 2 strands, which I applied together with scraps that I've been collecting all year. So I do magic balls. I use a Russian join to hold my magic balls together, and I made a sweater, which I'll show you pictures of here. So it's another pure fuzz, and that's a pattern by Skeindeer, and it's using the contiguous style of shaping on the shoulders, which gives you a sort of saddle shoulder effect. That should be a lot easier to say than it is, shouldn't it? And I found it to be a good fitting sweater. This hasn't been blocked yet, but yeah, I'm happy with it. Made a few modifications, of course. So I started off with the neckline. I've made it deeper. I've done a 2x2 rib this time rather than a 1x1. Don't think that'll make a difference to the size. But also I did some decreases to pull it in a little more. I know some people, they put like a crochet chain on the inside. I've seen Soxy Nana Alice do that. Again, I can't speak. Soxy Nana Alice do that to kind of give a bit of structure to the neckline rather than watching it go baggy. I decided to do some decreases so it comes up nice and neatly to the neck. Then made sure it went over my head, because obviously that's the other danger. Other mods, one I don't think I need to make. I thought the sleeves were going to come out too long, so I tapered them more. I did the decreases with fewer rows in between. And then when I tried the sleeve on, I thought, okay, that's actually shorter than I need. So I did a nice long 2x2 rib. That's fine. I've got some kind of slightly mixed weights in here, I think, but I'm not going to worry too much about that. I added a couple of pockets. I think I've sewn them on a bit unevenly, I'm not going to worry. Also, for the welt, I didn't know, I wanted to pretty much go until I was running out of yarn. I did have a little bit left because I thought I was getting too long and I wasn't wanting to make a dress, but I started doing a 2x2 welt and just carried on with that. So when I got to the last small ball of yarn, I sort of stopped where I was with the body, went up and did the neck, and then with what was left, carried on with the welt and did the cast off. So I always do a suspended cast off. I find that gives elasticity. It does flare a little bit sometimes, but I find it gives the elasticity that I like, especially on a welt when it's coming down sort of slightly onto the thighs, because I do need to walk. And similarly on the neckline, you want to get it over your head. But I am very pleased with this. So it has back row shaping, which I'm not showing you. There's the back row. Short row shaping at the back rather, so it lifts nicely onto the neck. Saying that I was into texture, I decided to do a little bit of knit and purl patterning on this. So I started off with some diamonds. You're not really seeing them because of the colours. And then just a garter ridge stripe, some moss garter ridge stripe. I echoed that on the sleeves, not in the same places because I didn't think that was going to work. But I just thought it added a bit of interest both in the knitting and in the finished sweater. In total yardage, it actually comes out a lot. It comes out 3,800 yards or something. No, 4,800 yards or meters, because it's times 3. So you would divide it by 3 to get your meterage on a one-off, a single strand sweater. But I am very happy with that one as well. So it has been a very productive couple of weeks. It may all go to quiet now, and if it does, that's fine. You know, I'm just rolling with riding the wave, as I keep being told to do. But that's what I've made so far. So I've made a bit of a dent in the stash. but not much of one, because it's a big stash to make a dent in. I'm very lucky. That's it for this section. That's probably enough. And I'm gonna edit this sitting at my desk because I have an oil-filled radiator under my desk, so that can keep me warm. I'm on my own in the house today, and it doesn't, there's something in me that says don't put the heating on for the whole house when you're the only person in it, because I'm only in one room at a time. So this is my office / craft room, so I'm gonna work in here where I've got an oil-filled radiator. In the sitting room, I've got the fire laid up. I just need to take a match to it and light that when I'm ready to be downstairs starting my next project, which will probably be another sweater I've made before, because I'm going to do another ranunculus, but without the lace. I'm going to do different patterning on it. But apart from that, just chilling and knitting. I'm very fortunate that that's what I can do at the moment. Take care, everyone. I hope you're all okay, and I'll catch up with you in the next section. Cheers. Hello, lovelies. Got a little FO to show you. I'm going to visit a friend who has had a rough time since I last saw her. She's had some tough times. That's all I need to say. So I thought I'd make her a little something, because she's a sweetheart. She's a very kind person. And she loves pink. Who doesn't? So I have made her a little pair of mittens. Now I realise, looking at these on the camera, they're coming up with a lot of kind of lilac into purpley kind of shades, but there is a lot of pink in here as well. So these are some fold over mittens, so if her hands are chilly and she doesn't need her fingers for anything, she can fold them up. But if she needs to do anything, she can make her fingers more available, which sounds very dodgy. So very simple pattern. This was actually an adaptation of a glove pattern by a very talented and frankly staggeringly attractive designer called Lesley, who you may have heard of. I mean, she's just fabulous. Yes, it's my own pattern. It's actually a glove pattern because I can't not modify a pattern, even one of my own. So this was based on my commuter gloves pattern, which is just a simple 4-ply fingering weight glove pattern. They're called commuter gloves because in the original, the 3 fingers here are fully covered, but the tops of the index finger and thumb are left free so that you can turn the page of a book, swipe a phone, what have you. I decided I was going to make gloves, and I thought, I don't know if she wants gloves. I don't know if I want to make gloves because they are a little bit fiddly. So I made the mitts instead, which I hope that she will like, and I'm seeing her in a couple of days, so I will give them to her then. The yarn is a bit of gorgeousness. This was one of my COVID purchases, so I've had it coming up 5 years. When COVID struck and lockdown kicked in, there were suddenly a lot of dyers who had prepared for yarn shows but weren't able to then exhibit and sell their wares. So I made a few online purchases at the time to try and support those businesses that were suddenly taking a drop to their sales. This is from the Fibre Fox, which is a UK dyer. It's their merino sock yarn, which is 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon. It comes up at 425 meters per 100 grams, and it's the Neon Kisses colourway. And it is just this very, very pretty pink into purple, which I'm rather in love with myself. Used 42 grams on the mitts, pulled a bit in places, got some interesting pulling and flashing going on, but hopefully my friend will find that interesting rather than not like it, because some people don't. And yeah, just a simple project, only took me a few days. 2.5mm needles, so quite a tight gauge, but a nice sort of cosy mitt. And this yarn is nice and soft, as you'd expect with a high merino count. So a little FO and a little gift. Cheers. Hello lovelies, got a couple of works in progress to show you. And whilst I do that, I'm wearing the grey sweater that I made, the navy one that you saw earlier. That was almost a sentence, wasn't it? The first of the works in progress is a ranunculus. I think I mentioned last month that I was going to make another one. I haven't put any of the lace pattern in, or the texture that's given in the original pattern. I just did a few kind of knits and pearls. I don't know if it will show up on camera. Oh yeah. And it's a kind of grid pattern. So there are a few reverse stocking stitch patterns in here. They're partly not showing up because of the yarn, because the yarn is Yarn Art Flowers Merino. This is a cake, and it had a little tag attached to the yarn in the middle which said easy start or something like that, so that was the beginning. And this is all the cake. So it's working its way down through predominantly blue and then into plain blue. Bits of this yarn I love. It is incredibly squishy. It's a DK weight, but it's really plump and soft and lovely. And I love a rainbow, and we certainly have a rainbow. What I find a bit surprising about it is it's one of those colour change yarns which is made up of, I think, 4 plies. Let me have a quick look. Yeah, I think it's 4. And you start off with all 4 plies in red, and then you have one of the plies changed to yellow, then 2 of the plies changed to yellow, and so on. And then 3 of the plies changed to yellow. So that's why you're getting this grade of oranges. What I would then expect is all 4 to change to yellow and then the next colour to be introduced, but it doesn't do that. So it goes from 3 yellow and a red to 3 yellow and a green. And that just surprised me. I think I would have preferred, given that we start with a solid colour and we end the cake with a solid colour, I would have expected a few more in the middle. So I was a bit surprised when I saw it go to green straight away. And actually looking at it knitted up, it's fine. You know, it really doesn't matter. It just took me by surprise. And it does that when it goes from the green as well. I was expecting it to have 4 plies of green, but I can see in the yarn that it doesn't. We've got 3 of green and 1 of blue, and then it looks like it goes to solid blue. It's fine, just wasn't what I was expecting. But beautifully squishy yarn. Himself got me this cake, as you can see, I've split the ball band. Himself got me this yarn cake on one of his travels some time ago. It's 25% wool, 75% acrylic, 225 grams, so it's quite a decent sized cake, 590 metres. So at a smaller size this would make the whole sweater. At my size it won't, but that's okay. I have some other yarn to add to it. I've got some dark blue and I've also got some purple, which is also Yarn Art Merino blend, so the same blend as this but a solid colour. So that's my rainbow ranunculus. I've just split for the sleeves. The sleeves are probably going to be, I'm not going to try and match up the stripes sleeves to body, because I'm going to end up with a lot of yarn ends that I don't want to weave in, frankly. So I did a few rows of the green and blue mix, and I'll do some of the blue, and then I'll go on to the navy blue that I'll follow on the cake from. Again, almost a sentence. Anywho, quite happy with how that's coming along. Soft, squishy, machine washable, lots of things to love about it, so all good. The other item I'm going to show you is, it's a household item. Now we have a coffee table which has open bits at the end, and on one end I fold up blankets and they sit there, and they're the blankets that we pull over us on chilly days. but it does look a little bit untidy. And I thought, well, actually what I would like is some kind of basket to hold the blankets, so that as you look at the end of the coffee table, it's just a solid thing, but the blankets all sit in nicely. And also they'd probably fit in better rather than fall out, because they'd be sitting in a container rather than like being on a shelf where they can tumble out and stuff. It's not a standard shape in terms of the width to depth to height dimensions. So I was looking online for a basket, and then I thought, I'm sure I could make something. You know, I make stuff, that's what I do. Of course I could make something. So what I thought I would do is crochet a basket, and this is using the same principle as the basket by Tasha, I'll put her name in the notes below. And it's called, now I've forgotten what it's called, but it's a rhyming name, and it's the something bucket. Yeah. And the idea behind that is you use lots of strands of yarn together to make a very dense fabric. So I'm working on that principle. Now my level of density is 3 lots of DK weight together, or the equivalent thereof. So I've got some chunky in here at the moment, so I'm counting that as 2 lots of DK. And so far I'm only working on the base of the piece. The sides I'm going to try and do predominantly grey, because this room is mostly grey and red in its decor. And I do attempt coordination sometimes. Not often, not usually successfully, but I'll try. So yes, that'll be a predominantly grey, in the same way that this is predominantly grey. It'll have other colours, but with its base colour of grey. Probably some of the same yarn. But for the base, it really doesn't matter, because that's going to be sitting in this space and won't be seen, because it'll be covered with blankets. So here's the base at the moment. That's as far as I've got. But it's a very quick project. It's on a 6mm hook, so with that thickness of yarn, quite dense, can't see through it. Actually you can if you hold it that close, but I wouldn't recommend it. Why would I do that? And yeah, I'm just working on that. Because it is quite dense, I'm trying to take care not to work on it for too long a period of time, because it can be quite heavy on the hands. And I know people who've made the bucket have had a similar situation, and they've worked with a denser fabric because they've perhaps made a round one that just kind of base and then carry on up the sides. And because it is very dense, you're kind of putting a lot of pressure onto your hands. So trying to get the balance right between doing that and creating something that's thick enough, but not to the point where it hurts to make it. So those are the 2 FOs for the moment. There are others, but these are the ones I'm kind of actively working on. I do have some old ones sitting in the office upstairs, which I feel I should either make the decision to get rid of or work on. And I think what I'm going to do with them is nick an idea from Mandy, Mouse's Makes. Second mention this podcast. Hello, Mandy. She has a lot of works in progress. That's how she's happy to do her crafting. And she has a jar of bits of paper, and each bit of paper represents a work in progress, and she'll pick one out and work on that for a week or whatever. I'm going to work on that kind of idea, but I don't need the jar of papers. I can just do it in rotation. So I'm probably going to think, right, well, for a month I will work on this work in progress along with these ones that I'm actively working on, and just kind of do a little rota just to give myself some momentum with them again. And then at the end of February I then change to another one for March, and so on and so forth. So that's the plan, to just try and keep things moving. All subject to me feeling like doing anything, and to an extent feeling like doing the things that I'm talking about, the projects that I'm talking about. I do often find that I don't feel like working on them, but then I get a few rows in, I sort of force myself to start on them, get a few rows in, and then I find the momentum comes and I want to move on to the next section, the next, you know, the split for the sleeves or the end of the piece, or you know, whatever it is. So I'm hopeful that that will happen, but we'll see. If I really find I don't want to make them at all, just not enjoying, not getting any momentum when I start working on them, then maybe that's a good reason to say thanks very much and good night. So that's the current whip situation. Cheers. Hello lovelies. Oh, it's very bright. Considering what a grey miserable day it is out there, it's very bright, but we will persevere if you'll forgive me, because I have prizes, I have giveaways, I have chaos all over my desk. So I don't know where the yarn is that I'm giving away. I'll find it. You know what it's like here. This is the December mail, so thank you to everyone who took part. We had 100 posts on the thread. The neatness of that amused me and pleased me greatly. So thank you to everyone who took part, especially as I wasn't podcasting regularly. There was no set schedule. I wasn't promoting the December mail. So thank you to everyone who took part, and I hope that you enjoyed the time you were spending crafting, because that was the idea behind it. So we have two prizes. We have a yarn prize, and that goes to post number 78, who is Lynn Clary in Canada. And Lynn made a Christmas hat, a fabulous Christmas hat. So Lynn, if you'd like to get hold of me ASAP, then I can get your yarn to you. If you could either email me or message me on Ravelry. I know we've had contact before, but obviously things change, people move, that kind of thing. So please do holler and let me know your postal address so I can get the yarn to you. I'll try and find it before the end of the podcast so I can show it to you as well. But yeah, if you can do that, that would be great. And the pattern prize is post number 60. And that is from Majesty One. Their post was part of an ongoing conversation. So Majesty One, congratulations. If you would like to drop me a message, either email or message me on Ravelry, and let me know what pattern you would like, I will get that to you. So thank you to everyone who took part. I really do appreciate it. Congratulations to the two of you. I'm just looking at a calendar because February ends on a Friday, so I'll actually be posting in about 3 weeks' time with the vlog. Be very afraid. It will be kind of the 22nd, something like that. So if you could both let me know by the 20th that you've seen this and claim your prize, that would be much appreciated. So yeah, let me know by the 20th. So that's Lynn Clary for the for the yarn prize, and Majesty One for the pattern prize. Congratulations. Thank you to everyone else. And I'll get your prizes to you. Thanks a lot. Hello lovelies. Some finishes for your delectation and delight. And I'm going to start with one which apparently makes me very on trend, because these are all over the place at the moment. Of course I knew nothing about this because I've no idea what's trending, but it will become obvious. This is my cowtopus. No, that's no good to man nor beast. You need to be able to see my lips. Well, some people do, and that's good enough. So this is the Cowltopus by Laura Nelkin. And I'd like to start off by saying that there's an old adage often said to knitters that, no, of course you don't have to swatch, as long as you don't mind if it doesn't fit. I didn't swatch for this. And even more foolishly, when I was part of the way through, I didn't check my gauge kind of ongoing. Had I done so, I would have realised that my row gauge was quite a bit shorter and done some more rows. But I didn't do that. So that's why this is a smaller, less mantle, elegant hood looking thing, and more a Knight of the Round Table. Or one who goes knee, as I suggested earlier. But I will talk you through it, because it's an interesting piece that I rather like. So I was on Instagram, as I am far too often, and I saw one of these hoods that must have been Laura Nelkin herself putting the hood on, and I thought, oh, that looks like a very warm piece. And I thought either for dog walking or just because I'm sitting here freezing my bits off, because I am a bit susceptible to the cold at the moment. So I looked into it, and it is the Cowltopus by Lauren Elkin, as I said, which was originally an M-Cowl last year. I downloaded the pattern. I hadn't got as far as making it or even getting the yarn out at that point, because I was working out what yarn to use and that sort of thing. And then I was watching Aquila, the Lefty Knitter podcast. I commend it to the house. And Aquila was also making a hood by Lauren Elkin, but a simpler version. So this is quite complex, and I'll go through some of the bits and pieces in a minute. The hoodola is a plain knitted hood, so very similar construction, rib, nice big hood, but without all the detailing. In hindsight, had I known about that pattern before I downloaded this one, I probably would have bought that one. But also in hindsight, I'm kind of glad I got this one. It took me into some techniques that I haven't done before, which is always a good thing. And also I could use the bones of this to make a plain hood if I wanted one, and I may well do that. And I'll talk through what I would do slightly differently again. But I'm glad I did this. Like I say, I should have checked my gauge, especially when I was halfway through and about to join for the neck part of it. But I didn't. So this is where we're at. I have tried to kind of stretch it out a bit. I mean, it will be lovely and warm. It just doesn't look quite as elegant because it's closer to the... It's a bit more sort of like that, which not a good look for anyone. So what have we got here? We have got a hood with a cowl attached, basically. And just to go through a few of the details, now it's a paid for pattern, so obviously I'm not going to give away too much in terms of the secret stuff, but just little bits that I liked, little details that were interesting. So the way the edges were worked gives the appearance of almost like an I-cord, but it's not an I-cord, so that was interesting. We've got this nice little cable detail here. There's a bit of feather and fan going on at the top. Well, that type of pattern. It's not actual feather and fan, but it's that type of wave. And then, once you get down to this bit, I had never before done two colour brioche. The reason for that is I know my own boredom threshold. It's very low. And because I knew it's one of those stitches where you do two passes, so for each row that appears on here you're effectively working what feels like two rows, I thought that is going to take forever. I'm not going to be happy doing anything with that. So I've always been tempted to do it, and I've looked at hat patterns and cowl patterns and that sort of thing, but I've never done it. So as a consequence, I've never done what I call fancy brioche either, which is where you use the brioche stitches to make then different patterns, using increases and decreases. So yeah, never done either of those. So following the pattern as it is, I won't say forced me into that, because the designer does give options for alternatives here, both for not doing brioche, doing a rib instead, and not doing this part but carrying on with what you've got already. But I thought, no, I'm here now, I'm going to do it. So I did. So this is my finished Cowltopus, and the only reason I'm not entirely thrilled with it is entirely my fault that I didn't check the gauge even halfway through, which I could have done, should have done, but I didn't. It will still be a very warm piece, but it's not, like I say, it's not that kind of flowing, elegant, kind of cosy, but look at me, aren't I gorgeous type hood. It's more like a 1970s school kid balaclava, but that's not the designer's fault, that is entirely mine. The yarn, I used very lovely squishy yarn for this. My main colour, this very dark grey, is Stranded Dye Works Merino Yak Silk DK in the Old Overalls colourway, and I used 68 grams of that. and I used 2 yarns in here. The top one, which is more of a variegated, is Rosie's yarn shed, Rosie's knitting shed, sorry Rosie, and it's her 75-25 DK, a little girl's Christmas colourway, and this was what was left over from the beret that I made for my friend last month. I think it was last month or the month before. So you've got this lovely dark pink with variegated, with sort of more speckled perhaps rather than variegated, blues in there, different shades of pink and so forth. When that ran out, I moved on to a plain pink, which is Sublime Cashmere Merino Silk DK, and I used 44 grams of that. So, very, very squishy, and brioche is very squishy. I mean, that's partly what it's known for. So there's the inside. Had I thought about how the colours would work, I would possibly have swapped over my main colour and contrast, because the idea is, now brioche is reversible in as much as, you know, you've got your black, your grey stripes against pink here, pink stripes against grey on the other side. So you swap colours so that as you fold up this piece and it shows on its other side, you then get the reverse colourway, which is the same as you're working on here, because you swap them over. That made no sense at all, but basically grey against pink, fold that up, grey against pink. However, I think the patterns show up better in the pink against grey rather than the grey against pink. So had I realised that, I would have swapped these over, and these lines down would have been pink against grey, and when this was folded up it would also be the pink against grey. But this is how we learn. So very squishy, very warm. I have blocked it partly because I wanted to try and stretch out this as much as I could, which is not the way to make things fit. We know this, but there we go. So if I were to make it again, I would probably make a plainer version. I like some of the details. I like that cable down there. Feather and fan is kind of okay. It doesn't really do it for me, but it's fine. To make it a more closely fitting piece, I would do a plain rib at this point rather than the brioche, so that it all tucks in nicely, because when I put it on and don't tuck the piece up over the face, it is just a loose. So perfectly comfortable and warm, but the rib would be a snugger thing. If it was going under a coat, for example, then there would be less fabric to kind of fight with, because it would snug in. Snug, that's not a verb, is it? But it would be more snug around the neck, and you could wrap a coat up around it very easily. But I'm very pleased with it in general. Like I say, the fact that it doesn't fit the way that it was designed to, and the way that I would perhaps like it to, entirely on me. I like the techniques I was doing for the first time, and interesting make. So that's the Caltopus, which, like I say, has options in it for variations, particularly once you get to this part of the piece. And that's by Laura Nelkin, and the Hodola is the plainer version. I'll link them both below. Cheers. My other FO is some spinning. Last April, I think it was, I went to a fibre festival in Eastbourne, which is just along the coast from me. And there's a couple, I think they're a couple, I mean they work together anyway, so they're a couple in a business sense, if not in any other, who were there with fibre, and I bought quite a bit. Now, many years ago, the first fibre I bought pretty much was from them, and it was some Falklands Merino in rainbow colours. Just quite small braids. They're about 30 grams each, so just over an ounce in old money. And I spun those ones, I think I was probably drop spindling at that point before I got my wheel, and produced some yarn that was very thick and thin, very not very good, because it was early spinning days. You don't go into something and immediately have it down pat unless you're very fortunate. but I wanted to try it again for a sort of compare and contrast. Not that I've got the other yarn here because it got knitted into a hat and a hot water bottle cover. But I do have this yarn. So I had 3 of these braids. I just spun each one into a single ply and then plied the 3 together. I had some leftovers which I've put onto my spares bobbin. So this has actually come out at 81 grams of yarn, and it's a classic 3-ply, 12 wraps per inch, which is a kind of fingering 4-ply slash sport weight, and I have got 120 meters of it, and I really like the way it's come out. It's fairly consistent in thickness. I mean, as with all my hand spun, fairly dense. I'm more of a sort of worsted than a woolen spinner, so there isn't a lot of fluff and loft in it, but it is fairly consistent in terms of thickness all the way through. And because of the way the colours went together, when it's knitted up, it will have stripes-ish. And what I quite fancy doing with this, as there's just 120 metres of it, is I think it would make a really good piece in a circular yoke, not as a colourwork piece, just as a stripe, because the colours are in here already. So that's what I think I might do. I think that would look pretty good. So that may be in a not too distant future project. Oh, I made a complete dog's breakfast of that. Try again. Yeah, so that might happen in the future. And be interesting to see if it comes out the way I think it will. Because I know some people can look at a yarn and they'll just instantly know, oh, that will micro stripe, that will do this, that will be, you know, that. I'm not that person. I've got a rough idea, but it is a rough idea. That's better. But I will be interested to use this, because it should stripe in some form or other. And I think as a stripe in a circular yoke, that would look pretty good. So that's the plan. I think we're nearly there, but I'll catch up with you in the last piece. Cheers. Hello lovelies. The last little section. And I'm going to show you a finished object that I started a while ago. And it's quite unusual for me. It's not my normal type of craft. To give a bit of background, when I first heard this quotation, can't remember where I read it, but I saw this quotation and it really just kind of struck a chord with me. And at that moment I thought, I want to put that onto something. I thought I was going to do cushions or wall hanging, or whether I was going to knit something with the words in or stitch it, or I didn't know what I was going to do. Over the last few months, particularly in the sort of last quarter of the year, I was going through quite an up and down time because of my health issues, and at one point was feeling very like I wasn't going to be here for long, basically. And I was then left with this dilemma: do I do the things I've long wanted to do because I've long wanted to do them, and let's do them while I have the opportunity, or do I think, well, that's just something for someone else to sort out later, let's not worry? In this case, the former won. So I decided to make this piece. I'm calling this very much a heart over head project. It's stitched, it's petit point, so it's half cross stitch. I don't do counted stuff. I draw onto the canvas, colour it in with felt tip pen, and then go over it as if I'd bought a printed kit, that type of thing. And this I completely did from scratch. You could probably buy kits with this on, I have no idea. But I printed off the quotation in a kind of big enough font, spent a while choosing the font, trying to think of something that would work well in stitch, kind of does. Then just got some, this was on some even weave fabric that I bought, and then just pulled out some yarn from the stash. So most of it is plain black. The words are picked out in this, which is Signet Boho Spirit. I mean, look at the colours on this. This is going into something else soon, we can tell. Yeah, Boho Spirit, that's what I said. In colour 6492 Zest. And I just put a board around it, and this is the piece. So if you're watching on a small screen and you're thinking, what does that say? Or because the font isn't very good and you're thinking, what does that say? Have nothing in your house that you do not know to be useful or believe to be beautiful. It's a quote from William Morris. This is also a William Morris design. I just kind of filled the rest of the space, basically. The irony is, I'm not actually that keen on William Morris designs. The Strawberry Fief is probably the most famous one. I'll put a quick picture here. I find it very busy, very Victoriana, not my style at all. But this quotation, like I say, it kind of struck a chord and has always been in my head ever since. I aspire to it. Clearly, you can see my house behind me. I do not achieve it. Lots of beautiful yarns, I mean, you know, and useful yarns, you know, they fit both criteria. And actually my mother, if she was being critical of someone, she'd say they're neither use nor ornament. It's a similar vibe. This is the quote I often tell himself is the warning quote, which are you, sweetheart? So, I have a frame. Middle sister got me a frame for Christmas. I just need to get some mounting board, which I hope to do next week, to put this together and put it up on the wall. So I'm pleased I've done it. Like I say, it's petit point, so half cross stitch, full coverage I believe is the term, and I just used some acrylic black double knitting weight yarn and that colour change yarn, and then a bit of cream in here to fill out that design. So there's that. So those are the last of my FOs, and it's been quite a productive month. I mean, next month might be square root of 0, but we'll see. Just a quick life update, because people are kind enough to ask. I've had 4 of my 6 chemo treatments. The last one, I wasn't sure if it was going to happen or not. I've had some delays and some postponements in the past because of health issues, which have been largely caused by the chemotherapy. I mean, it's a nasty drug, but a very useful one when it works. And a decision was made. Basically, I have 2 types of chemotherapy when I have treatment. Because my kidney function was very low, kind of like 21% or something like that, the decision was made that I would only have one of the chemo drugs last time. So a bit disappointed, because obviously you want to have the maximum treatment you can have, unpleasant though it may be. But at least it wasn't a postponement, we can't do anything for a couple of weeks. It wasn't that situation, so I was pleased that stuff was still happening. I'm seeing the oncologist next week, so we'll know more then in terms of whether further treatment is needed. I mean, obviously there'll be scans and things like that to see what's actually happening, and yeah, putting together a plan moving forward. So that's the situation at the moment. In terms of how I'm feeling, I am getting some of the same chemo symptoms that I had before, particularly aching legs, very quick to tire. I mean, this week I've had a lovely week because I've seen lots of friends and it's been great. Lots of social time. And when I was going through that difficult time at the end of last year, I did, as I described it to a friend, put out the unwelcome mat, because I just couldn't cope with a lot of people around. So if people said, you know, we'll come round when you're feeling well, I just said that'd be great and left it there and didn't make any plans, because I just didn't know where my head was at really, and needed to spend time processing rather than conversing at that point. Thankfully, coming out of that, so I had 3 days this week which I spent with friends, which was lovely. Left me absolutely exhausted, but in the best way. I mean, just, you know, that's all grand. So yes, next week, meet the oncologist, hopefully treatment number 5 next week if everything's okay, and onwards. So by the time the February podcast goes up, hopefully, if everything goes to schedule, I will have finished the 6 treatments. So fingers crossed on that one. The hair can start growing back. It's very fine now. That's fine. That's fine. It's a small price to pay, but cold. I'm very grateful for all the hats I've been given, as well as the ones I've made. Yeah, so that's kind of where we're at. So it does mean I'm not doing much except crafting, which from a knitting podcast point of view is fine, but from a general life point of view doesn't give me a lot else to talk about. But we're doing fine. We're doing fine, moving onwards, still here, and wishing everyone else well. So that's the end of this month's podcast. Thank you again for being here. Thank you for watching. Thank you to everyone who took part in the Mal in December. If the prize winners can get in touch in the next 2 or 3 weeks, that would be brilliant. Thank you. I think I said by the 20th, didn't I? So that would be great. And I hope that February is good for you, whatever you're doing. If you're in the Southern Hemisphere, you'll start to cool down a bit. If you're in the Northern Hemisphere, we'll hopefully see some flowers coming through and a bit of sunshine. Very sunny here today. Quite chilly, but very sunny. If you're in an area where there is difficulty, be that weather related or people related or life related, I wish you well, I wish you hope, and just thanks again for being here. Take care everyone, see you soon, thanks a lot, bye bye.